A warm welcome to the last session of the day. And, well, we split in half, so which gives us the opportunity to be a wee bit more in a conversation in the course of this remaining session. Community building for eco-civilization. And due the course of the day, we were exploring systemic wisdom and how we ground or shared understanding of the entire topic and how we want to navigate in that. We were looking into the financial aspects of it and the technology, one by one. But at the end of the day, we'd like to land or start, as you wish, with action. Go where the action happens. And this is what invites us to this afternoon session, to see where, apart from the frameworks, the ideas, the societal structure, do we see that eco-civilization growing out of communities which got together to pursue that cause? Probably not explicitly, probably not for that purpose, but in a way that we recognize as the seeds, the seedlings of that, what we want to see grow in terms of eco-civilization here, in China, and all over the world. And I'm tempted to go back to the notion of the garden that we touched upon earlier today. What if we were looking at the entire planet as one garden in which we see the different activities by the different groups and different communities, an ecology of co-flourishing in harmony? We're here to explore that with our rich panel in the course of the afternoon. We have two keynotes and two discussions that are with us. And I'd like to go forward without further ado with Professor Dr. He Ching Chen, and looking into what he has to share out of his position as Executive Director of China Geoparks Network and being Chief Scientist of the Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences. Professor He, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is He Qingchen from Chinese Academy of Geological Sciences and also the Chinese Geoparks Network. So I'm very happy and honored to be here to share all of you with the achievements in the construction and the sustainable development of global geoparks in China. So I think by constructing the geopark, this is the one way. It's one way for the harmony between Earth and humanity. So what is the UNESCO Global Geopark? Maybe some of you know that. In general, it's a single unified geological areas where sites and the landscape of international geological significance are managed with a holistic concept of protection, education, and sustainable development. So there are a total of 10 themes. That is the natural resource, climate change, scientific research, scientific popularization, education, history and culture, women's participation, sustainability, indigenous people, heritage protection, and the geological hazards. So including the volume, that is the size and the landscape of international significance. And the management, it should be single and unified. And with the UNESCO logo, and so with the network, as a global network, it's for change and exchange, change and cooperation. So for each origin and the growth, this geopark is sourced from 1999. And in 2003 in China, we established an office, that's the Chinese Global Geoparks Network Office. So that in 2004, that is the first international conference on geoparks to be held in Beijing. So in that time, a total 25 global geoparks worldwide, but in China, there are 8. So in 2015, so this geopark has been incorporated with the UNESCO. It means from 2015, geopark is the third brand of the UNESCO, like the World Heritage and like the bio and man and the biosphere. So up to now, so in the worldwide, the total of the 229 UNESCO Global Geoparks worldwide. In China, 49, a 14 largest community. So you can see the slides. So and it means in China, the geoparks almost encompassing almost every type of land form, like the Lushan, Shilin, Xinwen, Wudalianchi, Danxiashan, and Huangshan, also different kind. And all this is also famous resort area in China. So, and so in 24 provinces, so there are the global geoparks. So they cover the 6 major types, like a desert, karst, cave, coastal, lacustrine marsh, low mountain, piedmont. And there are 37 geomorphological landscape, of course, including the 10 types of the geoheritage, like the strata, tectonics, or glaciers, fossils. So why does such a distribution occur? So that it's closely related with the structure, tectonic structure in China. Because this slide shows us the tectonic framework in China. So in China there are several types. So different territories, like the Tibet and to the east area, like the Suzhou, like Shanghai area. So different level. So this is a typical tectonic structure. It's formed a lot of the different landscape. So I just show you so what kind of the major achievements. So by constructing the global geoparks in China, so the 21 years after the UNESCO is 10 years now. So for this geoparks, it means that we protected a large number of important geological heritage and promoted geoscience popularization and education, and provided community well-being and public benefits, and enhanced scientific research and international exchange, and advanced socio-economic sustainable development, and contributed targeted poverty elevation in rural areas. So, for example, greatly enhance the protection of geoheritage. It means more than 2,300 geoheritage conservation sites has been established at the various levels, covering a total area of 38,000 square kilometers. And you see this map is Zhangye, okay, Daixie, okay, landscape, landform, and it's the global structure type section and point, GSSP in Xiangxi Geopark, and this very beautiful cave and salt diet in Tongren, Guizhou province. So it means by constructing good geopark, a lot of the high valued of geoheritage has been protected. And then greatly enhanced the scientific research and public education, like the more than 200 geological museums and the 18,000 popular science interpretation boards, so showed as constructed. And then, of course, we have a lot of the website. So it's the very useful for the, this is a natural textbook for the understanding crustal movements and the geological processes. So this slide will show you it's easy to understand for the students and for the public. For example, so if you see, landscape like this, everybody will know, so you know this beauty, but you should understand why beauty. What is the reason? What is the reason? For example, this is Wukongsan. It's Jiangxi province. And from the view of a point of geology, you will see this is granite dome, just granite dome here. So and then now, so that's geological, and now is the public view. So you will see, the alpine, metal, and the granite peaks, and the hot spring. Why hot between all these areas? So this is very unique combination in the world. So it's a granite dome, and then different weathering, and different technological movement, and a lot of precipitation, and penetrated to the underground by the fracture, by the structure. So that is a dome. It means very close to the hot source, so deep hot source. So it means a lot of hot spring there. So that is a combination. It's the unique. So that a lot of people work here, live here, and for holiday here. Is the very, I think, the harmony in this area. Of course, for geopark, and greatly expanded the research literature of the science and the popularization and the education. Of course, and then in the expanding the experience through the official website. So every geopark has its own website. And of course, every year have a lot of the colorful and diverse promotional activities, like the Earth Day, like the Geodiversity Day, like the Museum Day, every so can be showed, and it can be organized by Geopark committee. Yeah. And of course, for every year there is the network. That's not. It means the GGN, Global Geoparks Network, and the APGN, Asia Pacific Geopark Network. So and of course the CGN, Chinese Geoparks Network. So for a lot of network organize a lot of the activities every year. And the most important thing in China is for sustainable development. 5 years ago, the Chinese government announced this has a big victory for the anti-poverty. So now it's promoting the rural revitalization and the local economic development. So of course, most geoparks are located in the rural area. So that's very useful and can bring a lot of revenue for the local people. So it's according to the incomplete statistics. So it means the more tourists with more employment and the more revenue and the more homestays. The more homestays. That is very harmony. You can stay at your home, at your original area, and you can get money, and you can increase your life standard. Okay, as I mentioned, so UNESCO Global Job Park has been the third major brand. So at now. So we can ask why. So it means what reasons behind these achievements. So this is three kind. Okay, we can see concept, management, and the network. And for the concept, so celebrate nature's wonders, promote regional prosperity, embrace sustainable development. And for the management, in China, it's very different. So China is very centralized government. Very centralized government. So means it's top-down management and bottom-up development. So for the UNESCO guideline, they encourage the bottom-up, but in China, up to down. So the top-down. So there's a very good combination. So don't lose the identity and include many aspects. That is the Chinese management. So, and of course, network, as I mentioned, that AGG, APG, and CGN. So it's the efficient, orderly, and distinctive management model means that government led. Okay, you can have resource conservation and environmental optimization, formulation of policies and planning, resource support, public facilities and services, and brand marketing and security, and of course, full social participation. So that is the unique and efficient management model in China. Of course, the national policies issued strongly support the contracting the job parks, like the administrative measures for global job parks in China and the different regulations, and of course, and also the guideline of national guideline. And for the local management, they have the master plan, and of course, they have the tourism development plan. So everything can be very good combination with the job park, with job park development. So policies and funding by the local management is very important. But another one is we have the multi sources of the funding support and standardized operation. So for example, like the Guizhou province, they have from the government budget, for the 40 million a year to support the job park. That's one example. So it means the financial support by local government and special funds for geoheritage protection, and of course scientific research funds and operational revenue and the social capital investment. So that is together. That is the way, another way. So to keep this harmony, Of course, I mentioned the network. That is for the session or conference. So 3 days ago in China has held the annual conference for the UNESCO Job Parks in China, Global Job Parks in China. So every year we have a lot of activities, a lot of conferences. It means that we provide the exchange the platform for them. So of course, and we try to make an integration of industry, academia, research, and finance. And by this Okay, by this, we can get more, okay, revenue. Okay, the development potential of the global geographic now is 2 to 9, so that in 2050, 500. That is the UNESCO target. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much, Professor Hay. I was sitting here listening to your presentation, and time after time I had a question. And before the question really materialized, you came up with a slide giving the answer to the question that I had. That's so impressive, so impressive.
Okay.
And I think it is a very interesting starting point if we talk about community building. This is really building. This is providing a guideline, an infrastructure from, as we heard, top down. At some point I was wondering about the connection in between the network, the exchange of experiences and knowledge, and then you came with a network, and then you came with a conference and all of that. I think in the further discussion with our panelists, we will explore that a bit deeper, because it's very, very interesting, and the question remains, how do we get from the preservation of natural heritage to aspects of regeneration and the eco-civilization as we've chosen as the topic of this conference. But for the moment, thank you so very much, Professor Hay. Next in line, with a long, long list of achievements and titles, Professor Sika Heinonen, who has been professor at the Finland Future Research Centre. We all know nothing sells as well as future and what may come. She's a full member of the Club of Rome since 2005, 20 years already. Chair of the Helsinki Node of the Millennium Project, an honorary member of the Finnish Society for Future Studies and the Futures of Finland. And I think we are now in for a counter aspect to community building in the broader landscape of eco-civilization. And without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
And after 15 minutes, we're going to invite the rest of the panel.
So, good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here in this session on community building and community development. I thank the organizers for the invitation, and thank you, Luis, for the kind introduction. So, my topic on urban futures is kind of in the form of theses or statements. So, about this background that Louis already introduced, I'd like to emphasize that because I'm professor in future studies at Finland Futures Research Center inside University of Turku, that means that we are a discipline, we are a department. So this is quite unique in the world. The field of future studies already started in 1950s, so it's already 70 years old field. But as a discipline and a department inside university, it's quite recent. From 2013, we have been able to provide international master program in future studies and also doctoral program in future studies. And we have students from more than 25 countries. I have had Chinese students as well. So that's something to reckon. When we think about the future of cities, urban futures, they are full of crises and opportunities, and this is actually symbolizes very well the Chinese character of crises, which has both meanings of dangers and opportunities. Cities are growing globally. They are not just growing, but they are becoming increasingly complex socio-ecosystems, as Michael Batty, an urban researcher, has emphasized very much. And they are very vulnerable, actually. Cities are exposed to crises, and crises arise in cities, but they are, on the other hand, they can be resolved inside cities. But when we think about cities and the life in cities, they are like microcosmos of life. Everything is there in the city. They are not just buildings and infrastructure, but most importantly, they are about people, spaces, and various functions inside the cities, and complex interactions. Cities adapt best to people's psychological dynamics and routines. City dwellers have a need to experience their environment as meaningful. For example, when we walked around this Suzhou and this area around this international conference center, there's a lot of greenery and parks, and so it's kind of being dynamically built into a space of meanings. In this presentation, I wish to share with you top 10 theses how to make crisis-resilient cities. And this is a statement and recommendation we want to give out to decision makers, policymakers, urban authorities. The resilience of cities and the built environment is an essential, it's a crucial aspect of preparing for the future, because urbanization is one of the strengthening and most impactful megatrends. We have to prepare for the ways and pathways that urbanization is proceeding. But how decision makers could be made to change their thinking to achieve the goal of future's resilient cities, not just to think about the future of cities as such and plan for the future of cities, but to integrate future's mindset. And this top 10 thesis concept is used within the Finnish Society for Future Studies, as Louis mentioned. I'm involved there, and it has been established already in 1980. We use, whatever the topic is, this kind of top 10 theses around a topic. It could be climate, it could be building, it could be energy, it could be transportation, media, whatever. Then we brainstorm and make a study. What are the top 10 most important aspects or statements or hypotheses that we could address a certain topic? So that's the background of this presentation, and I'm inviting you in the audience to reflect when I present briefly these top 10 theses. Do you think they are relevant? Do you think they are self-evident? Perhaps too surprising or something else? So any feedback and comments are welcome, because we are developing these further. This list is in no way exhaustive, but it's top 10 theses that we would like to present. And these have been gathered and collected within a research project called Rescue, How to Make Cities More Crisis Resilient, funded by EU and Academy of Finland. Some of you are probably familiar with the concept of futures literacy that was developed by Riel Miller within the UNESCO Foresight Network. Futures literacy means the skills to create and use systematic insights, for current decisions, so to use futures images or scenarios or whatever foresight material in the present day. But I claim that this futures literacy is not enough. It has to be deepened into futures resilience. And by futures resilience, I mean the skills and capacity to anticipate and embrace crises and shocks, to survive and cope with them, but not only that, but to learn from them and possibly renew our own activities. So thesis number one is about anticipatory governance. We need governance in all sectors. In cities, we need urban governance, but we need to have anticipatory governance. It means integrating foresight systematically and continuously into one's own activities. And globally, strategic foresight is being taken seriously now more and more at the EU level. UN, OECD have started these kind of anticipatory governance campaigns and efforts. And in Finland, we have a long tradition since 1993. Our government makes a government foresight report, which is submitted to Parliament, and inside Parliament, a permanent committee for the future gives feedback to that report. That happens in each electorate period. So, this is number one. We have to embrace systemic analysis instead of siloed approaches. We have heard this claim earlier in previous sessions, as Carlos emphasized, that we have to get rid of silos. But it is not an easy task. We have to consciously make efforts to have this kind of holistic view and getting rid of silos. This also means looking beyond own sector and trying to learn from other sectors. This is a photo of a bomb shelter in Helsinki, which is otherwise not used, but now it can be used also for other purposes like cultivating herbs. But this kind of idea that cities could have nocturnal mayors, 40 cities at least have now nocturnal mayors, meaning that not only taking care of activities that happen in the daytime in cities, but also what happens in nighttime. Then thesis number three is that we need to look at collectively and collaboratively ecoregion model. So it's a city with the surrounding fringes as well as the countryside around the city. A Scottish architect, Patrick Geddes, developed this idea because this is part of supply security and all kind of interrelated activities between cities and the countryside, not just the city as an isolated unit. Thesis number four is this crisis awareness as one key element of futures literacy. So actually also crises have dual nature. When we think about one crisis, it's not enough. We have to anticipate crises, but we also have to anticipate possible interaction with two crises or even more crises, because we are living in a polycrisis world. But we don't need to panic. We have to anticipate, we have to be prepared for crises. And thesis number five that we want to propose is kind of interesting. We claim that we need to develop temporal competence. It means like time skills. Time skills and temporal competence it means that we have to think also in the very long horizon, but also sometimes we have to act very quickly. So combination of short-term, middle-term, and long-term thinking is very important. But also how to use and balance our own biorhythm. When you are working, if you are very stressed and you have to work very hectically, you yourself actually know best when it's the time to rest and when it's the time to work. So this kind of biorhythm awareness is part of temporal competence. But when we think about buildings and built environment inside the city, buildings should be designed to be either very short-lived, like mobile structures. In case of some natural flood or some event, it should be able to be moved somewhere else. Or the building should be built permanently to be on the spot. Because if buildings have to be demolished, let's say in 50 years' time, we waste a lot of natural resources. But if they are built like castles permanently to last for several centuries, it's more ecologically beneficial. This is number 6. What is peer society mode? We are moving towards a situation where hierarchies break down. So peer-to-peer society means that we learn from our peers, not so much from top-down thinking, but from peers. And this is, for example, in energy sector, this means that households can install solar panels and they can become energy producers themselves or producing energy for their near community. This is number 7. Is about multi-locality. People are living in several places during 1 year. So this has to be taken into more careful consideration when we think about mobility between these places. Can you telework at home? Or do you use a lot of fossil fuel transport? Those kind of things are important to take into consideration. Then thesis number 8 is about hybridization of society and hybrid spaces. It means that we should be able to understand that there are already hybrid spaces, but we could also develop hybrid spaces on purpose. They are combinations of various attributes, physical plus virtual, private plus public, immaterial plus material spaces. So these kind of combinations may open up possibilities for building adaptability. And thesis number 9 is like a recommendation to use more pilots, make experimentations very boldly, because it's a safe way to proceed. You don't invest all the money for some structure, but you make first some pilots. This is a photo of a floating building as a pilot in Finland. Pilots can be like anything. It's based on innovations and ideas that people present. Citizens can also claim that we want to have floating buildings, but time shows, are they worthy of being scaled up? And the last thesis is about setting the bar higher. Also, in previous sessions, we heard that we need better leadership. So this is kind of a critical moment. We need visionary leadership in order to have good results in community building. And here I will finish. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Professor Heinonen. Wow, that is a bit of a stretch from the preservation of landscape and geoparks to the very heart of the city. Urbanization on the one hand, that is meeting present and future challenges and on the other hand, creating an infrastructure that preserves, safeguards, cherishes what we have in richness in our landscapes. I'd like now to invite the entire panel, Professor Hay, Professor Zaitonen, and our two other panelists, which we already know from the morning. Would you please come to the front? Which we know from the morning. Song Kiao Yao, looking into Wildbound, and Karima Kadawi, also, like Song Yang, member of the Club of Rome and co-founder of Temkin Community Foundation for Human Development. And here is what I like to bring into the room in two steps. One is I like to give you a microphone first. One is a question that I will pose at you two, bringing these beautiful keynotes to our audience, to go back to the notion of the mirror and what you recognize in each other's presentation. You have a moment to think about that, because I'd like to invite the two of you to share your experiences that you would recognize, connect to community building for an eco-civilization. Whoever likes to go first.
Thank you, Louis. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, it's really interesting as my mind is and my body is also sense-making while hearing the two presentations. And our topic this afternoon is about community building. And my first question after lunch to Louis was, what community are we talking about? And I think that we had two keynotes and two different kinds of communities. And you have one that is geoparks, that's primarily nature-based and land-based, and the other that is cities, which is primarily human-based and perhaps culture-based, and the way that humans organize. And it's interesting because it kind of connects to my work in a way, because I started Wildbound in 2017 after working about for a decade on different environmental issues. I started organizing transformative learning journeys to wilderness areas such as Greenland, Antarctica, the Himalayas. So I brought people out to some of the geoparks that Professor He has mentioned. And in those places, we actually drop into the humility of being in kinship with other beings that's non-human, and then try to learn together and come to an understanding of what our natural world is facing right now and what is our role and responsibility in working together as community, in communion with the other beings that's in the world. And very quickly after I started running these expeditions and these deeply transformative learning experiences, I've had people who come to me after these deep experiences to say, but I go back to my system and my community and everyone else is the same. And it's actually very, very hard for me to integrate what I have seen, the melting glaciers, connecting with the local people, to actually go back to some of my urban settings to know what I could do. And then we had to start with more systems work to actually go to the schools, to go to the companies, go to the local government, and go to the built environment to say, how can we actually leverage the communities that people are already in? So in a way, we had to combine these vertical peak experiences in transformative settings and horizontal temporal rhythmic change that needs to happen in one's day-to-day life to be able to actually create these pockets of hope that I call in different parts around the world. And this can be in a school, can be in an office, can be in a government setting, to actually promote ecological civilization, if this is the bigger aspiration that we see. So in that sense, we have gone through about 7 years of different kind of experimentation and learning, and my colleague Heran, who's sitting there, actually coordinates one of our regenerative leaders network, in which we started with architects and designers who are actually starting to think about how do we design and how do we create a place that's not just a space, but actually in that process, I can enable life systems to flourish. So I can enable the different human and non-human in the process of designing a building, designing a conference, designing a program to actually allow all life to connect essence to essence and to be able to support each other, to have co-evolving ways to further our mutual flourishing and to get to our potential. And I think both of our speakers actually talked about this, the potential, both the potential of the geopark as a potential site for learning, for research, for engaging with communities, for knowledge exchange, but also cities as potential and spaces as potential for people to engage with the future, to embrace the future, not just to react and respond, but actually to be able to anticipate and to be able to plan and to be able to have resilience to whatever it comes. And in that way, we're in active participation rather than just responding. So I feel like from what we heard from the two speakers, I got this sense of community building from my perspective is about agency, because we're not a community if it's just a collection of respondents to a particular threat. And community building is actually a collection of agents who are trying to work together. It's not always easy to work together as a community. And I have to say that this is actually literacy and competency and skill set we have to train. And we need a whole new set of curriculum and ways and conditions to train people who are good at collaboration, because it's not in our school system, it's not in our financial system to encourage radical collaboration, cooperation. So in that way, community building is a new, but it's actually a really ancient social technology that we actually need to go back to the elders and go back to nature to be able to learn how do we organize. And there's a certain level of ritual and a certain level of rhythmic, temporal, spatial aspect to this about how do we gather, how do we meet, how often do we meet, how do we respond and come together, and how do we move through conflicts and disagreements. And especially in this day and age, I think in the last panel, we heard about the institution versus the relational, because right now institutions are becoming these monsters who hold power, but actually are not contributing and in service of life. Then how do we actually create relational leadership and to create these communities that are in service of life flourishing? I think it's really difficult to actually move into a way of co-ownership and co-holding of communities and perhaps rotational leadership. And I love this idea of a nighttime mayor. If you think about ruling a city can be distributed, that role can be distributed depending on days of time of the day or times of the year. And you think about sharing assets in different places according to your preference. And actually in that way, this moving away from owning, commanding, and controlling, but actually in sharing, learning, and borrowing from each other. And that's in a way, kind of we're going back to that community building. So it's a bit of a spontaneous sense making of what we're talking about here.
Thank you so very, very much, Song Yao. Community building. And we heard now a third perspective that is leaning into design, which in my resonance with the world very much goes hand in hand with engineering and thinking about something, implementing something. So I would love to invite a more organic perspective. Is it really that we build a community, or is a community rather an organic entity that grows by itself? And if so, what can we do, or how can we inform that future growth, that future unfolding, becoming of a community? And probably, Karima, the experiences with Tumkeen lean into that.
Thank you very much. Wow, it was so interesting, so inspiring. And I will start by resonating with your presentations, because you both talked about understanding. You were talking, and it was so beautiful to create the conditions to experience beauty, but also to understand the beauty. Why this beauty? And you were inviting for cities to become a place of meaning, no longer a space where I cannot relate to, where I cannot feel belong to, but a space of meaning, a place of meaning. Then the city really becomes a place. And I would go to the resilience. A city's resilience with and by and for and from the resilience of its people. Having meaning, feeling a sense of coherence in one city and belonging grows and nurtures that resilience. And the father of psychological resilience, Maurice Cyrulnik, did a research on people who experienced trauma, extraordinary trauma in their lives. He was himself a survivor of the Holocaust. And when he did that research on people who survived the Holocaust, but did not survive the same way, some survived and were able to thrive in life, rebuild their lives, and others were never able to. And when he did his research, and after many, many hours and hours of interviews, he found something, that all the ones who were able to flourish, despite that trauma, who were able to define themselves no longer by the trauma, but the trauma became an experience in life, but they were greater than that experience. All had in common something. All had experienced unconditional love, unconditional love in their lives. And it did not need to be from a parent, but that unconditional love that tells you, I love you for who you are. Not because of what you do, how good you look, how well you study. I love you because you are you. That is something that sets in our very fabric of our beings. That is something, when that fabric of our beings is shaken, allows us to come back, resilience. And your invitation to understanding, I will follow it by reminding that understanding is not standing beneath, but etymologically is inviting us to stand in the between, in the barzakh, where dwells the unthought of, the fecundity of the not yet imagined. But we can only access that. And I will cite Shams Tabrizi. You can only access that. He was saying that we learn with books, by reading, but we understand with love. So thank you for inviting to recognize the beauty, to love that beauty, and to embody that understanding that makes me an expression of that eco-civilization. But I am an expression of that eco-civilization. It is love who will take me there, and my very presence. I will go back to what the question that Louis asked. Can we really build a community? Our language betrays us. Our language takes us to places that we really know that it was not the right place, but we still go there. In Arabic, the human being has the same root as to forget. But that expression, understanding that we forget, has a lot of compassion. Because if we've forgotten, and through the geoparks you're reminding, if we've forgotten, and through growing cities that have become places of meaning, so if we can remember together, and then we will be able to realize the beauty that our cities and that our world beholds. We will be able to realize the beauty that we behold. And that beauty will be reflected in all the social ecosystems, in all the communities that we co-create, that we weave, that we live, and that we breathe. I will just share maybe an experience, how university students and their faculties were able to realize the beauty of their university. And they realized the beauty and they're beheld by their university because they experienced the experience of saying, "Oh, I did not know that I was like that." And the moment that you feel that, "Oh, I did not know that I was like that," that is the moment that you recognize in everyone, we are like that. That is the moment that I connect to a self that I can call greater than the self, that I can call my humanity, because it is common, because it is shared. And my humanity does not only connect me to each other, human beings, but something much greater, to a whole that is beyond our conscious grasp. So from that faculty, from that experience, the students went back to their villages, they went back to their cities and to their neighborhoods, and they went back to their schools, and they were saying, and then we hear it again and again, if I would have experienced this when I was little, I would be such a different person. And then again, the beauty of the human being, when you experience that deep experience, when you experience that deep experience of connection, at that moment, it is not something that you keep to yourself. It is something that you are compelled to share. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much, Sankyao. Connecting essence to essence, and Karima, understanding with love, sets the tone for our two keynote speakers, which I asked earlier. What do you recognize in each other's presentation? And now, with these two beautiful resonances, how do you resonate in approaching the question of how to build communities for eco-civilization?
Well, thank you for these ideas, and I think this is a rich discussion already. Your presentation and the speakers' comments and your question, how to resonate and reflect all these together. It's a diversity of ideas, but the core is in understanding and love and healing as well. But also this idea of community building, I see it in the larger frame of ecological civilization building, which is the whole title of this conference. It is the question of education. We can't understand unless we have education. We can't learn unless we learn from others. So this peer-to-peer learning, which I mentioned, I consider it very important. And also community building, I see in two ways. It's a community building. We are building like material infrastructure, cities, buildings, etc. But most of all, we are building a sense of community, a sense of community belongingness.
Thank you very much. Professor Hay, how you resonate with all these beautiful resonances to your presentation and the presentations and the overall topic of community building for eco-civilization?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So as I mentioned, the geopark is a sustainable development area with a single and unified area, and it's with the boundary. I think inside the boundary is a bigger community, including the beauty, including the human beings and villages. So that is a big community. That's for geopark. So the inside the geopark, that is the protection and the development. So are two important ways. So as mentioned, why is sustainable development? It means before you can, by protection and by development, you can get some revenue. Again, you can make more funding and then invest more for the protection and for further development. So my understanding for the civilization, so it's a poor area. I think it's a normal civilization. So you get promoting your life standard, you can get a higher civilization. That's my point. So the community building, so that my experience about the constructing the job park is so that I think in the past 2 decades or 3 decades, more people in the rural area, maybe this rural is a job park area, so that it's more people, more young people want to the city to looking to get jobs, to get more money. But after constructing the job park, it means that more homestays and the more jobs available, and like more research jobs available, and for everything. So and then attract more people, young people back home, back to the village, back to the job park area. Back to the job. So they live from the city. They bring some new ideas, new concepts, and together with their beauty, okay, plus the investment funding from the government. So they make this community, okay, more beautiful and more sustainable. So that's very important. So it means that constructing the job park and is important way for the community, for the civilization of this community. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And what resonates with me from both of your reflections of what has been said so far is the peer-to-peer, the learning from and with each other. We were talking about that in the first session today, the core reflection of lived experiences from which grows a shared understanding of what is and what can grow from it. And this is very much what I recognize in what you just shared, but I recognize also in the network and the exchange in the network. This is where a very organic notion of withness, of being with each other, growing with each other, co-creating conditions for the co-flourishing in the city, and in the geoparks, in the rural areas, becomes possible. I'd like, since we are a fairly small group, like to open the floor. So I will call one of your microphones and walk up to you and ask for questions, resonances, and be part of our conversation. I don't want to go to question and answers. Questions shall be invited still, but more being in a dialogue, being in a conversation with these beautiful people here on the panel. So may I ask one microphone? Who likes to start with the resonance? Steve here. Probably just your name so that everybody knows who's speaking.
Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, I'm Stephen Hartman from UNESCO Most Bridges Coalition. And I really want to thank all of both of the keynote presenters and also the really stirring comments from the other two panelists. This has been an excellent session so far. I had a question for you, Professor King Cheng, about the geoparks, because one perception often has been that of these three different kind of UNESCO brands of World Heritage Sites and biosphere reserves in the Man and Biosphere program, and then geoparks. One perception is that that these are valorized sites that get special recognition for being extraordinary in some way. And I think that in the case of geoparks, they often have an extraordinary dimension, but I think you just communicated something that had been a question of mine that I'd meant to ask, which is, how is value added to the sites and to the communities? And you just went through a very good description of how that is, and so that this is not only about awarding or recognizing extraordinary sites, but sites that need further attention and protection, and that can also then generate valuable educational, sustainable development outcomes. And I really, really appreciated that, because it helped me get a better understanding of how the geoparks actually maybe don't fit that model that some people sometimes have, that because within the UNESCO context, I've sometimes heard that a certain label or a brand is awarded to a site within one program or another. I'm not specifying any one program. And then then there's this view or perception that these sites sometimes become neglected once they have that designation. But that seems to not at all be the experience that you have conveyed. And so anything that you might wish to say in addition to what you already said on that topic would be most welcome.
Thank you for your question. So based on my understanding, as I mentioned, most of the geopark is located in a remote area with the low input and lower education, and so that it's not good for the local community building. So by constructing the geopark, so that they attract the more people there, and then so that, as I mentioned, so in China we built a lot of the geological museums, and with the several thousand of interpretation panels in the geopark, and then keep like local people now. So now, why the beauty? Why beauty? And what is the reason? And they know exactly. So the environment around the community is how to protect it, and it's the more I think it is add value for them. So that before that they know nothing. So they go to the city for the job. So and then they know their hometown is very beautiful beauty, and with the high value of the geoheritage. And so that's by constructing geopark is add more value. And then they learn each other, they learn from website, they learn from the museum. And so that's a very good education. And so by so we said that there are a lot of network, a lot of activities to be organized every year, and the villagers join the community, join the network, join the conference, so they get more input. So knowledge transfer, and then they can promote more for the protection their environment, protection their heritage, and the protection. It means not protection their job. They get more money, and then so increase the standard. I think the average life standard. That's it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, King Cheng. More than your words, the energy with how you present the development the social development around the geoparks is amazing.
Thank you.
More questions, more resonances. There's one in the back. And who's speaking?
Hi, Sean from Singapore. I do sense one common thread is the belief in the potential of working with communities as a way forward, right, through many of our challenges. One of the things that I think many of us has been seeing has been the rise of communities who feel disenfranchised. I think this is not just in any one nation, many nations around the world. I mean, for example, in Germany, for instance, I was quite surprised to see communities that have been pushing back against climate action, right? And this is not an anomaly. This is part of a growing trend. And I guess my question to the folks on the panel right now is, given your experience working with communities, is there an untapped potential here to work with communities who feel aggrieved, who feel left behind? And if so, why are we still seeing them? Do we need a new extra emphasis to not leave these people behind, not just disregard them as racists, but find ways to meet them with love, perhaps? I'm not sure. So that's my question.
I saw you already nodding, Karima and Song Kiao. May you two take the question first?
Thank you very much. You might look at a community and look at them and say, oh, they feel differentialized, they're marginalized. But when you get closer to the community, you realize that things are not quite what they might seem. And other communities that seem prosperous, are they really a community or collective of human beings that feel materially more privileged? But is it community? So is that the belonging? So this is maybe also to reflect about what do we see and how do we understand what we're seeing and how does that reflect our own perception of ourselves. The second answer I will share a story. I will share a story which moved me a lot because one of the students of this faculty I was mentioning, it was in the north of Morocco. She came from a community where there was a lot of violence. They had a communal land, and that communal land was source of conflict, of violence, even killing. And that community, they're a big family, people that are very close, almost all of them related. So you would have the children going to school, cousins who lived next door to each other. They would go separately, go to the same classroom, and leave separately. That young woman, Fatima, when she saw how the students started to go back to their neighborhoods and facilitating what they experienced, their Temkin experience in their faculty, she said, can you come to my community? Because we suffer a lot from violence. When they went, they did not expect that when the children came, and many children came, and the students were going to facilitate the process, they did not expect that the children refused to be standing in one circle. They created 2 circles, and they refused holding hands. But she was telling me, and I still remember the expression in her eyes. She said, that land, we used to meet in that land that was the source of our problems, that the land that invoked violence in us. It took 5 to 6 months until we finally got to be one circle, until finally the children were able to hold hands. And when that happened, the families started to come. That doesn't mean that the challenges are not there, but they are coming together. They're sitting in a circle. They are able to water, because you cannot build a community really. But what you can do is water it, is nurture it. And you water with love, you were asking. You water with the feeling of belonging. That story of Henna was told to young people in Shawan. And they are living similar stories when communities, different villages are coming together with students and young people from the city, We're seeing the distinction between the city and the villages dissolve. We're seeing the conflicts turning the backs. Communities are starting to look at themselves and to look at each other. And the language is, now that we are together, we have it all. Let's co-imagine what we are going to live. Not what we are going to do, what we are going to live.
Thank you so very much, Karima. Song Kiao, you had...
I think that already beautifully illustrated. Maybe just to add, not to add, I think just we're talking about the same thing, which is that discomfort and resistance is fertile. And behind and underneath that sense of being left behind and that sense of not being included is actually deep care. And that care can be leveraged through the support and love to be encircled together. And it may take a couple of hours, a couple of years, a couple of decades, but out of ruins, can we build new things? Yeah.
Thank you so very much. When we talk about communities, and going back to the German philosopher Friedrich Hegel, we can talk about communities in itself. We see the people living in one village or in one city or in one quarter of the city or around the geoparks, and a community for itself. Karima, you were doing this gesture, a community that recognizes itself as a community. And we are back to the witness, the being together, the deep human relationships that can grow out of that awareness of our humanity that connects and defines us. I like to invite more resonances, more questions. And I guess as we are all part of the one or the other community, we can resonate with our own experiences or have more questions. Who'd like? Let's go for it.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's pretty nice panel here, actually really complement to each other in a different aspects and help me understand what community building could be. My puzzle, just because there's so many constraints and challenges regarding community, what community is and how we help build it, because they all could be the problems and how could they become the solvers in a common setting, a space. That could be also in the Chinese. I just want to talk about the institutional environment, what you guys present at the very first section, how those notions can be integrated into this different, absolutely different institutional environment with stronger hierarchy when you're talking about so bottom-up and so horizontal process, right? So just thinking about how to be able to really fit this in and to become a whole. So this is my puzzle. I've been trying to see how I'm building those bridges, but I'm really happy to see all the different ingredients you guys gave me, including the literacy of the future, being a system thinker and all this stuff, and how, because for us, we individually will only see this much, but if we have that mindset, we probably think, okay, maybe only see this much, we only do this much, but continually, we build on the efforts, build through all those different cross-site collaborations and different elements. Those elements may be able to build up a momentum. So maybe that might be able to see the change happen. So I would love to see whether you can guide me into this process, because China has demonstrated a miracle from the red China and become a green China. But I hope they can also be playing a leadership role in the societal level, right? In the humanity perspective, especially right now, the 2018, the rural revitalization become a national policy. And the nations cover all social forces, including us, including we are as a science institution. I call us as NGOs, science-based NGOs. All of us have a role to play, a stake to play in this process. So that's why we have a lot of collaborations and things like that, knowledge intermediaries. So I'm so happy to hear your insights or advices in those different kinds of strange and conflicts. It could be institutional, could be different notions, and how to get things done and how to get credits, right? The different parties. Thank you very much.
That's a big one, and it's one for all of you. Probably we start on this side because, and have a word or two, a resonance, an idea in response.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment and question. And I think community building, I can't stress enough the importance of community building being done in a way that it includes all stakeholders, academia, companies, public sector, authorities, NGOs, citizens, all have to be taken into this process. And in the very beginning of any development project, not so that some plan is there on display and then some feedback is asked from the citizens, but citizens should be included in the very first steps of any urban planning project.
Thank you. Based on my experience, my experience is also based on Chinese political system. So for the community building, I think in China it's important that it's the management body, management structure. China has a very well-organized structure, well-organized management committee, like I said, for each community. So the first has a master plan, and then just follow it, do it. So no more NGO. So plan is there, just do it. So that's why. So we can keep the community building on the first, and so you know what I mean. That's important, of course. So in China, a different community, we have a different So we have the different channel for the talking. For talking, maybe like NGO or something. Yes, we have there, but we have we have a master plan for the community building. So for example, in Joe Park or the community, there is the villager committee. A villager committee, and the villager committee is guided by the government. So that's why we said top down and bottom up. That's a very good combination. Very good. That is. So I think in the Western country maybe it's bottom up. So but in China sometimes top down. But we should have a very good combination. That's a very good mechanism for the community building. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Right.
Karima.
Thank you. Well, such a good question. I will take you to live with me this experience that I had. I was with the education system officials, but this experience has been lived with many authorities, and including also young people in villages and universities and schools. But in particular, when there is a structure that is very hierarchical, it was so interesting. So after creating conditions together where there was a connection, where we were introducing each other through our names and the meaning of names, there was a moment where the connection, the mandate, the responsibility of the hierarchy started to dissolve, and the conversation starts to go somewhere else, somewhere that is less constrained. where people are more, go more to the meaning of things and a bit less into the structure. But then at that moment, there is an invitation, a reminding that if we are here, a community of harmony or an ecosystem of harmony, and because the feeling at that point is really that we have this connection. We're going to create 3 groups, and you have chairs. And those chairs, we're going to display them randomly. And each group has a mission. And if you tell them just each group has a mission, and the first group, you tell them, you have to organize the chairs in a circle. The second group, you have to organize them upside down. And the third group, you have to organize them in pairs. And you tell them, while you're realizing this, your mission, you cannot speak to the other groups, nor with each other. So you can communicate, no, you cannot communicate verbally, but you you are all going to carry your mission at the same time. As soon as you say that, immediately triggers something. Competition. Immediately. I have a mission, I have to succeed, I have to get right there, and we have limited resources, and we have to share the resources. Someone has to win and someone has to lose. Actually, invariably, and it's so funny to see somebody kind of tugging at the chair and realizing that he's pulling the chair of the hand of his boss, so letting go of the chair, or people just actually becoming quite violent, or sitting on the chairs, running out with the chairs, stopping, moving back, or even boycotting the process because they would try to, each group would try to succeed in their mission. What changes? If you not only give a mission, but you also remind. And maybe this is something to contemplate. If you also say, we are a community, we are an ecosystem of harmony, each group has a mission, but we all have an amena, one amena. Amena is that which you are entrusted with, the trust. A trust is held here, in the heart. Amena is held in the heart. Responsibility, you can feel it in the shoulders. When I remind that one amena is to preserve the essence of the harmony of the community, something happens. At that point, they start trying to realize their mission, and they stop. They start looking at the chairs, they start observing each other, they start inviting each other to go ahead, let me see what you're doing, just with gestures, without talking. And slowly, slowly, they start organizing the chairs in a circle, upside down, and in pairs. There's no war, no more war. It was reminding that we have one amena. So that allows me to trust you and you and you, that we have that amena and we are all there to preserve that beauty of that essence. So that is how we can live, not theoretically, not in the mind, but in the very body, those experiences that grow the realization.
Thank you, Karima. No.
Can I get away from the hierarchical question? Short answer is it's very hard. I come from the province where Confucius is born. I have a family of civil servants, and all of my parents and grandparents are like, what the hell are you doing? And I have even family members who are in the fossil fuel industry that has, provided and supported, the past 4 decades of this country's growth. So it's complicated, and each of us is the embodiment of all that complexity in ourselves and in the projects we do. So the short answer is we have to live with the discomfort and to utilize the compost and the nourishment from whatever we have, the discomfort that we have. And what Karima shared is really inspiring because there are technologies we can use. There are technologies that's about sitting in circle, that's about tapping into a collective aspiration, not just my own goal to do some project, but is there a collective aspiration? 共愿. Like if you have a dream, then it's only your own dream. But if it's a collective dream, then that's something that everyone can go towards to. But if you don't have that collective dream, you have a collective karma, 共业. So sometimes your aspiration can downward spiral into collective karma, then all of the trauma and the reinforcement of previous Hertz will continue to be replayed and the hierarchy and all of those things. But if you have the aspiration that can help you spiral upwards from essence to essence, then potentially that there are ways to work through some of these work. But it's not easy, and I think it takes, and the other thing is it won't happen in a very short time, so perhaps a longer term view. And the other thing is, I'm probably going to be a terrible civil servant if I go into that, and probably going to be a mediocre academic. But I know I probably won't be good at running a multinational corporation, but I have very close friends who I can say heart to heart, I trust them and they trust me. And then that's where we can actually work on projects together, because projects are held by these webs of relationships we build. And if we focus on building those relationships, which are the soil, then the project could emerge. And it could emerge today, it could emerge in 10 years' time, but it's important to keep cultivating the soil.
Thank you so very much. Essence to essence. What I take away from this afternoon is a lot of learning in the center of a community growing. Essence to essence, understanding with love, top down and bottom up. Peer to peer. I trust you, and this is how we close our session. I want one single word of resonance from each of you. I'm going to go around clockwise. A word of resonance to our time together and our panel. And James, it is coming at you. What is your word?
Intergenerational.
Cohesion.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Art.
Love.
Dumplings.
Together.
Possibility.
Consciousness.
Thank you so very much. And of course, a word from each of you.
Thank you very much for the audience as well. And I can't stress enough the importance of preparedness for the future. So any community, whether it's a city or a rural community or an ideological community, can start adopting futures consciousness and build, for example, this kind of collective dream. What is the shared vision of such a community?
Thank you very much. So that I warmly welcome all of you to visit Chinese Geopark, and I can show you how the community building inside the Geopark. Thank you.
I would go to the word civilization and remind just that civilization in Arabic, hadara, means being present, being in presence. Thank you for this presence, this beautiful presence.
My words are trust and patience, because it takes time and it takes all of us.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. Of course, I have to apologize in the name of the organizers to cut it all short here. I know there's so many remaining questions and resonances, so I invite you, since we're here together, peer-to-peer, learning from each other. So approach the panelists with more questions, with more resonances, and continue the conversation. Thank you so very much. Oh, of course we have to take a picture.
I have some reports here and articles. If any of you is interested, please approach and have.
Yes, and the panel for the photo. Who's taking the photo? Okay. Oh, here comes the photo. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.